Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I see there's already a lot of questions in the chat. So, for those who don't know me, I'm Savin Yeatman-Eiffel. I'm the creator of Oban Star-Racers, producer, writer, and co-director. And we have with us, for the first time in English, we'll be speaking for the first time in English, Thomas Romain. I let you introduce yourself.
Hello, I'm Thomas. So I was the character designer on Oban, co-director and art director on the show, and I'm talking to you from Japan, from Tokyo.
Yes, live from Japan, Thomas Romain, live from Paris, Savin Yeatman-Eiffel. So it's the first time I'm doing this streaming on the channel. So sorry if there are some little hiccups, but we're going to do our best and discuss how we met, how we worked on Oban, the adventure of a production in Japan, working with Japanese staff. Of course, we'll talk about the Kickstarter and also about the possible future of Oban Star-Racers at the end of the session. I just want to say one quick word. I was devastated this week by the invasion of Ukraine. It's very shocking for me, and I was thinking of canceling actually this live session, but then afterwards I thought, Oban is about bringing hope, bringing people a sense of escape and bringing something good. So I think we should go on with this live session. But all my thoughts goes with our Ukrainian friends, because we have a lot in Ukraine, and as well as our Russian fans, we have a lot of them as well. And I'm sure they don't want to be dragged into. Neither of them want to be dragged into the kind of conflict we have today. And if you remember Oban, I don't have a very high vision of strong, powerful governments like they have on the show, and I think if there's hope, it comes from individuals and people who stay strong in the face of adversity. And I hope, I hope this turned out for not as this ends quickly and we can move on to something much better. After this quick introduction, let's speak a bit about, Thomas, maybe how Oban began. I was working. I went to a film school. I started working in animation in France for a few years. Some of you, I know there's one or two super big fans of Dragonflies, a show I worked on when I started my career. So there was a very creative team on that show, but it was also very hard because it was a toy line. Basically, we had to make a show about a toy line, and this put a lot of pressure on us, and actually a lot of limitations in terms of designs, in terms of storytelling. And actually working on those kind of shows is one of the reasons why I wanted to make Oban, to free myself from this kind of constraints and make a show that was closer to the animation series I saw as a kid in France. We were lucky enough in my generation to see a lot of anime on French TV, like Captain Harlock, Grandizer, Candy, Mirai Shinkonen, shows like that had a very big impression on me. And I started to set up a small team of artists to work with me and try to, find something new, do things differently from the way they were done, and not subcontracting shows to countries far away, but to work within a studio, hopefully in Japan. And one of those, we had some experienced designers who had worked with me on other shows who joined that team, and also some very fresh designers. And one of those a good surprise for both of us was Thomas Romain. So I let you, maybe Thomas, explain a bit how we met and what you thought about this project, and how come you trusted me enough to throw yourself into this project, which was really at the very beginning where there was no money. It was a very small team.
Very beginning. So what year was that? Do you remember?
I think I started in 1996. And you came in 1997.
1997. So it's 25 years ago.
Yep.
So that's crazy. And at that time, so I was 19. I was just I was studying science at university, and it wasn't really my thing. I realized that, I was not bad, but it was not my passion to work on science, and so I decided to quit and to try my luck into try working in creative in the creative industry. So at first, I was thinking of maybe becoming like a comic book artist. And I was also at that time self-taught. That's how you say, right? So I was learning by myself how to draw.
Yep.
And it was like, I don't think at that time it was like we didn't have yet like emails, internet as well. Like there was nothing like to learn. I had to buy some books and to buy comics books and to learn by myself basically. And then a common friend introduced us. I remember very well, and that for the first time I was 19. I was just drawing in my room. I was living by my parents' house, and so this friend of us like took me from my small world and brought me to the outside, and I started meeting people also working in the entertainment industry. And for me, it was like crazy to work with people who were actually working on animated shows I could see on TV. It was like the real stuff.
Like going on the other side of the magic, magic mirror.
It was very impressive at that time. And sometimes I'm thinking about this when I see like young people coming to me and to ask stuff about the like a career in animation. I remember the feeling it was like to talk with people who are working on real like shows. So that's what your case at that time. You were writing on a couple of animated shows.
Mm-hmm.
And so around you there were some storyboard artists, character designer, and through this you and your small team, so you introduced me to the animation industry. I wasn't even aware really that there were studios in France producing animation. It was like completely new world to me, and so I tried to make my best. So you had this project called, at that time it was called Oban Racers,
mm-hmm.
and you wanted me to start like creating some characters and spaceship designs. And yeah, I started like putting a lot of ideas on paper. And actually I was like, I think I just quit my studies in science, so I had a lot of free time actually. Mm-hmm. I didn't at that time, and I wasn't working, so I put all my time and energy into crafting some interesting characters for you. And yeah, I think my level at art was at that time very low. I wasn't very good at it, but I had so much energy and I was very, very highly motivated. So I think
there was something really, fascinating about Thomas. So it's hard to, as he just said, his level was not very high in drawing. I mean, it was not bad, but he was really starting. And it can be surprising for people who want to get into this business. But just I saw how Thomas in a few years just progressed so completely and became such a talented artist. And when he was starting, you felt there was something. There was the seeds of something, but he was still far away in terms of technical drawing. He was still far away from the level he reached later on. So just every week we met with all those guys I put in the team. I wanted to have also different designer at the beginning because in Oban there's a lot of different races and different world. So having different artists to bring different ideas from their own worlds helped us, come up with little ideas and stuff that we were to use later on to finalize the characters. And Thomas came every week with not 5 or 6 drawings like the others, but like 20, 30 drawings. He'd been working all week long. And the sheer amount of work and determination he had was really amazing. So, and gradually, Thomas, I was impressed by his work. I saw the progress he showed, and he affirmed himself as a very central character in the team. And we gradually, we left the other designers, more experienced designers that we had started working for. We let them, put them aside, and the team concentrated on myself, Thomas, and then Loïc Penon, who was also a friend who came at the same time as Thomas, and Stanislas Bonnet, who joined us a little later on. And that would be the core team for the development of Oban. I'm going to try to show a few pictures of that time. Hang on, I don't want to make a mistake.
Yeah. And so while you are searching for your images, and so that's after we met. So, and I met with all your friends and people working in this business. That's at that time in, I think, 1998. I learned about the animation schools in France. I learned about Gobelin, which is one of the most famous schools in France. And I decided to try to apply to this animation school. And and how do you say? I got received. I have to say.
You went in.
I managed to
pass the test.
I went to the test. I passed the test, and so it was after our meeting. After I already knew you, so that I started working. I started studying animation at school. And so
if we hadn't met, what a loss for the animation world. We wouldn't have Thomas Romain to be the brilliant director, art director that he was on Oban and that he became in Japan on so many series afterwards.
Yeah, but so and from 1998 to 2001, so I actually studied in animation school.
Yep.
And while I was studying, we were still working together a lot during the weekend, and after school I went to your place.
Yeah, because that's when I created Save the World Productions, because at first I wanted just to develop the show and to sell it to other companies, but I couldn't find a company that reassured me that they really understood what we are trying to do. The idea of getting off the beaten track and doing things a bit more interesting, a sequential story, characters with depth. And you see me on this picture. I'm in a small market, and I have this very small booth, and I'm trying to show my stuff. And you see some Oban Racers drawing from the time, and another show that was called Squat, but was for adults. And there's a few pictures. I'm gonna move to some other pictures. Is it changed on the screen, Thomas?
Yeah. So I think it was me, like I was like 19.
Yeah. So that's my pool table, because I had a studio. The studio Save the World was really a studio. It was my one-room apartment. It was a fairly big room, but that was just a one-room apartment. And the pool table that I bought, and it was my dream of buying a pool table. When I became a writer, I could afford a pool table. I was so happy. But very quickly, Save the World, my apartment became the studio Save the World, and the pool table was covered with these big planks, and we put screens on them, and we never played pool ever again. But you see Thomas and a few of our friends from the beginning of Save the World, and that's the reverse shot with more computers a little later. And you already see a smiling face in the background. That's Stanislas Bonnet, who had joined us. So that must be maybe 2000, the year 2000 now. And it's a bit more working on several projects. It was a really nice time. A lot of people from the Gobelin, people from your actually
it's really because the guy we see on the left is Antoine Antin, and on the right is Jean-Jacques Denis. And Antoine Antin is now like a crazy, like very, very talented animator. And Jean-Jacques Denis is a animated movie director. He just like his latest movie is called Princess Dragon, which was released like in December in France. And so we were already working with this bunch of very talented guys.
And that's the four musketeers under the Eiffel Tower: Stanislas Bonnet, myself, Thomas Romain, and Loïc Penon, who were really the core team in the end of the development of Oban Star-Racers. And that's the street where I was living, and a few, a bit messy. That's where it all happened. That's the first. We'll talk about that later. Our first visit in Japan. I turn off this, and I return to the screen.
Yeah. So
Okay.
beginning of Oban was like, for me, from 19 years old to like 25, probably. We were developing the show, the idea. We made several versions, and it was like we were working on this place, your small apartment, and it was like I was coming to your place like every day or every night, every weekend.
Yeah. We were
It
working
was
like crazy. And I slept in a cupboard because there was my bed became a sofa for people to have lunch and everything. So I slept in a cupboard behind. It was really like a tramp, but it was a fun time anyway. Very creative moment. So just to summarize very quickly, there was three periods basically. The first period we worked we made a lot of drawings. I set the main course of all the main characters and worlds, and we started to design. You started to design the characters, the spaceship for each of the different race teams. But in the end, I got slightly cold feet when I had to meet with broadcasters. It was the company had just been created. I was a bit worried. I couldn't convince them, and I asked one artist to give a look. A final look to all those different drawings, and it was a bit more conservative from what I had intended in the first place. And we did a small trailer in 1998, and we produced it the old way in Korea, subcontracting it in Korea. So I wanted to do things differently, but in the end I got a bit scared, and I did things a bit the normal way, and I was not very happy with the trailer that we did, and I was not happy with the results of the drawings. It was all the good ideas were there, but visually and in terms of tone and emotions also, it was a step backwards from the first intentions. So I decided that we were not ready yet, and we put the project on the side for a little while, and so we'll get back to it a little later when we feel more confident with what we can do, and just not use somebody external from our team, but just with our four, we finalized everything. So we worked on two other shows which didn't get made, but almost got made. Squad, a show for young adults, with the trailer was like 7 or 8 minutes, and it was in a lot of festivals, and it won awards. And we had Thomas & Co, which was a show for a little show about kids, 12-year-old kids, their daily lives, but very realistic, and about talking about real life issues like your grandfather just died, your parents are divorcing, you get beaten up at school by some bully, or little things, little events of life. That show almost got produced by a big French company, but I realized very quickly that it was going to go nowhere, because everything we tried to do in terms of writing, all those little emotional things I just talked about, they were scared, and they just wanted a happy, funny, jokey show, little kids having fun and making jokes, and that was not the idea of the show. The idea of the show was really to go in the emotional aspects of life. So I was so tired and so bored of fighting with this channel every week, every month, and going nowhere, that I said, it was 2001, I said, this is going to be crap. Let's stop it. I don't want to make a show just to make money, I don't want to make, I created these companies to do something different. So let's forget about this show and let's go back to Oban. Because now by then the team had grown. Stanislas Brunet was there, and Thomas had become such a great designer in the few short years from the beginning of the development. And we looked again at our old drawings, and in about a magical month of May 2001, because we had a deadline to take part in a market called Cartoon Forum, which is great for young, small, independent companies. If you're selected, you get a chance to pitch your project to all the main broadcasters in Europe. So it's a big chance, because usually you don't get to meet those guys easily. And there was a deadline. We had to submit at the end of May or early June the dossier, the file, and we started working and in terms of writing, in terms of design, everything fell into place. Molly, who was a secondary character, became the main character. Rick Vanderbolt, who was the main character but was more of a Jordan-like, was more of a comic character, became big Rick Vanderbolt. They created Jordan, and we already had the father and the son conflict, but it was when Molly became the main character, a girl, another boy. it makes things so much more interesting and subtle, and I started to see the show much more clearly, the direction where we wanted to head. And we were still far from the final product, but it was a big step forward. And we were selected. And then we had a few months to make the trailer, which is Oban Star-Racers, which was released in September 2001, and attracted a lot of interest from big European broadcasters, even American broadcasters, and was a big hit on the internet because it was leaked by I don't know who. Don't ask me. But it was before YouTube, and we had hundreds of thousands of downloads for the trailer. And at the time, it was really exceptional. And everybody in film schools or animation film schools, people interested in short films, everybody knew about this trailer, Oban Star-Racers. So I can't show you the trailer because we don't have the right to the Ayu Hamasaki song. But I'll show you.
Maybe some visuals?
Yes,
like some
visuals.
still images.
Keep talking a bit while I get the images.
So we decided to redo completely all the artworks and come up with a different direction for the visuals.
And the big thing is that you, Thomas, now were the head of design.
Yeah.
So we had the small team. Now the four of us, and in terms
you trusted me with that. You trusted me with that because also we went through a lot of other different projects during the past couple of years. And so on my side, I was very, very influenced at that time by Japanese animation, because during my 2 years of study at Gobelin, I met with like people who were in the same class, who were true lovers of Japanese animation, and thanks to them I was able to discover a lot of Japanese animated masterpieces. And at that time it was not so obvious that Japanese animation was not so popular as now. It was quite difficult to get your hand on some good VHS tapes or laser discs. So, and I was very, very influenced by this style, this graphic style that you find in Japanese animation. But at the same time, I was aware that I was not at the same level as Japanese character designers. So I deliberately choose a more like a simpler style. And also, I don't know if you remember, but at that time we were thinking of maybe producing the show in full 3D, in 3D animation completely. Because at that time in France, there wasn't the 2D animation industry wasn't very well developed, and there were some studios, but I don't think any studios was able to animate a full 26 episode of a full series. It was, I think, completely impossible. But 3D in France was already quite advanced in terms of style, and so we are thinking of producing the show in 3D. That's why the trailer you are talking about, the teaser that we made in 2001, was animated in 3D. And so I was also aware that 3D, the technique, it is like this. All the technical side attached to 3D is it evolves very quickly. And so if you try to have all the latest shaders and effects, it will how do you say, old?
It will get old very quickly. Yeah.
It ages very bad. So,
and if you look at the shows from that time, especially the DreamWorks feature films or stuff like that, where they were so happy to show that they had a cool texture, of metal or something. This looks awful now because you have a 2D and suddenly you have a spaceship in 3D or something like that they added, and it's unwatchable almost nowadays.
And so we decided to go with take the opposite direction and try to simulate something very simple in 3D. So thanks to all the cell shading techniques that we use at that time. I mean, that's in 2001, this small short movie we made, like define the complete art direction for the show that everybody knows.
Yeah, I think what we wanted for sure, we wanted the spaceships and the backgrounds in the race to be in 3D. That was for sure.
Yeah.
For the characters, we were not completely sure yet, but it seemed almost impossible for us at that time to be able to work with Japanese studios that we loved and to have good enough animators to do the animation. So 3D was a good way to have at least the character design is going to be the same in every shot, which was already.
And also because we didn't want to outsource the animation, like all the long animation series produced at that time in France, all the animation itself was not made in France. It was made like in Korea or in China or in
it's still
India. I don't know.
It's still the case for many shows, and for example, people don't realize that maybe that the Simpsons, for example, is animated in Korea, has always been animated in Korea, and for a very long time, and Avatar is animated in Korea as well. But then, if you have a lot of money, like those big American companies, like Avatar is 3 times the budget of one episode of Avatar is more than 3 times the budget of one Oban Star-Racers episode. So when you have a lot of money, you can have the best available animators, and you can ask for retakes, and in the end you get a good looking show. But when you're not at that level of budget, you need to have really good animators, and it's very risky to subcontract because you don't know what you're going to get, and probably the animation is going to be bad, and you don't have enough money to ask for retakes, and you have what you have, and it's not sexy.
And we wanted a full control on this show. I mean, it was our baby. We developed it for many years. So the production choices decision was very important to us. Also because I was studying Japanese animation. I was studying animation, and I discovered all the quality of Japanese animation. I realized that the Japanese could obtain this great quality for some of them shows and some of their movies because they were crafting the animation really like here with animators at the studio, and that's the key actually, to be there as a art director, the designer, to be next to the animator and to work with them and not outsource like animation at the other side of the world. It's very key to me, and that's how I wanted to work on this project.
That's particularly important in our case, and because Oban, after we did the pilot, we started developing further the show, and as we did, the writing especially became more deep, because the 2001 trailer already has emotion, but it's a slightly younger target, and the show we started to develop afterwards aimed at a more general audience, kids, but more than kids as well, and we needed to have animators who could render the emotions, the subtleties in the reactions of Molly, of the confrontation she had with her dad, with other characters. And when you subcontract, you get the basic package. You cannot go. You can have funny, sad, laughing. But that's about it. You have about 3 expressions per character. So we really needed something very much higher hand. And then because of the success of the trailer, doors opened for us. I had already started to meet some Japanese studios in markets to see there was a possibility of working with them. But one big door that opened is when the trailer was shown on Japanese TV on a TV show called Digital Stadium, which talked about 3D short films and production around the world. And they came to our studio. And when they opened the door on the very small place we worked on, they were like, "This is here? Is this where you're working?" But anyhow, they interviewed us. They showed the trailer, and one day there was a site called Pocket Movies, was like an ancestor of YouTube, which was one of the main site where you could see the trailer. I was checking from time to time the messages that fans left on the board, the notice board, and there was a message like that was something like, "Me, Takanashi, like your show won't produce." I was like, what the fuck, what is this? So I checked on the internet and Takanashi, and I found that there was a Mr. Takanashi who produced Escaflowne, one of my favorite animation series, and also produced the Cowboy Bebop feature film. So I was like, now that's really a bad joke. I mean, this is really not funny, making fun of people. But anyway, I asked, I couldn't believe it, but I asked the owner of Pocket Movies. At the time, it was easy also to contact people directly, to get the email from this guy. And I sent a message and didn't get an answer for 1 month, 2 months, 3 months. I was certain it was a bad joke, and I totally almost forgot about it. And then suddenly I got a small message: "I can't go MIPCOM, but go see Mr. Nana." And so he was really Mr. Takanashi from Bandai Visual, and we went to this big market called MIP TV, maybe MIPCOM, which is in Cannes every year, and we met people from Bandai Visual, and it was the first step to putting a strong foot in the Japanese industry, because now we had the possibility of some funding from Japan, and we had spoken with some studios before, which is pretty big studios, but we were very afraid that working with them would make us put us in a situation of inferiority, because we were big studios. They had several shows going at the same time, and we are very afraid that if we managed to fund the show, they would take our money and put it somewhere else, and we couldn't control what was going on. But thanks to Mr. Takanashi, we met the people of HAL Filmmaker, which is a much smaller studios in Japan, and they do 1 or 2 shows at the time. And for them, Oban was a big thing. So we knew they would really concentrate and put all their efforts on our show. And that's with them we worked in the end. And the financial process took longer than that, because we had now money from Japan, but we did a lot more to produce the show. And to go very quickly on that, it was a very, very difficult process, because the Oban Star-Racers trailer attracted a lot of attention, and some big companies wanted to produce it, but they had their conditions. And one of the conditions very often was, we don't want Molly to be a girl. We want Molly to be a boy. I mean, we want to sell toys. We want people at school, boys, boys, it's a race thing, it's for boys. So make Molly a boy, and we produce your show right on, 100% of the budget. We can start tomorrow. And so that's a big thing. I mean, when you're told that, and you're a small company, and we've been working hard with almost no pay for several years, you have to weigh your options. But when I got deeper in the discussions, I realized that those guys really wanted something very different from what we were aiming for. It was going to be like the other show, like Thomas & Co., the show we had done several years. It's going to be stripped of all its ideas and become a very blend. So changing Molly into a boy would have been the first step into downgrading everything else. So I said no. Then there was another big studio was like, "Oh yeah, we want it. We're financing 50%. And then 1 month later, "Oh, we want it, but it's 30%. And then 2 months later, "Oh, we want it, but it's 15%. And so the big companies lost interest after a little while, but we continued to work hard, produce more and more, start writing the scripts, making more and more drawings. And in the end, we managed to have this unusual configuration with Bandai Visual on the one hand, a Japanese company, big Japanese company, Disney on the other, and France 3 in France, and Super RTL in Germany, and all those partners were almost there, but it was a slow process. And to end this moment of development, this difficult period, we arrived at 2003. We've been working on the show for now several years. We had a big success in 2001, but now it's 2003, and time is passing by. No contract is signed yet. And I feel it's gonna slip through our fingers that with the change of the year, it's every year has different budgets, and they're gonna forget about us. So we had a little bit of money from a company that paid us a small MG. I bought plane tickets for Japan, and in the 15th of December 2003, we left for Japan, and moved into the studio HAL Filmmaker to start working there. And I emailed the other companies and said, "Now we're in Japan. We're starting to produce the show. If you still want in, please sign the contracts." And luckily for us, in just a matter of a few days or few weeks, all the contracts which had been drying for months finally got signed, and production could start, and which is another phase of the production adventure of Oban. What do you remember of that period, Thomas? And I tried to find some pictures in the
Yeah, actually, I don't remember very well. I think you. I mean, all what you're saying now, you didn't say it to us at that time. I think you didn't want it. You were like our father, you know, and we were your children. You didn't want you wanted to protect us from all those bad like problems of for like production and money stuff and contract and stuff. I mean, Stanislas and I. So Stan is the other main creative guy. So Stan was in charge of designing all the spaceships and most of the backgrounds. And with Stan, we met at Gobelin, the same animation school. And so he joined the project from that time, around 2001, I think. And so, yeah, we were just so excited to be able to start the production and go to Japan. So I have been, and so at that time we were preparing this big leap into the unknown for a while. So I started learning Japanese maybe 1.5 years ago. I mean before 2003. Same as Stan. And so actually I also was thinking of, I mean there was this like we weren't sure at that time that Oban would like become a show at that time. It was there was no guarantee at that time. So I was preparing myself because I really wanted to go to Japan. So if would if Oban would fail, I think I would have. I mean, I think I was ready to go even by myself to Japan to start a career. But hopefully, you managed to bring all the partners together, and we were able to start the production.
And I'm showing on the screen a few images of our first days. We were very shocked, surprised to see how the Japanese were working, because it's a very tough working environment. A lot of people work home, but those who work in the studio have very small spaces to cram themselves in. Some people work very late at night, so typically a working day would be from 3 p.m. until like 4 a.m. or 5 a.m. And people wouldn't want to pay a taxi to get back home, so they would sleep under their table or leave it from the first train in the early morning. That's a production part of production department at HAL Filmmaker. So it's not Pixar or anything.
It was like I was really I mean impressed in a bad way actually. I mean it was okay, but because I already knew, and that's like Japanese people are working so hard. The budgets of anime shows are very, very low compared to what we are used to in the US or in Europe. But that's also what I like about it, because like they are doing crazy stuff with like just their skills and passion and hard work, and I wanted so much to learn that from them. And I was a little bit like annoyed by all those American like feature films. Like they had so much money and so much, like it was compared to the way that Japanese are working on their feature films. Even even like movies at Studio Ghibli or big companies, it's nothing. They are working with such low budget and time, and anyway despite this they managed to make like beautiful feature film or series, and I wanted to know their secrets. How do they like can pull off this kind of like magic? And so that's what I wanted to go to Japan so badly. And yeah, but yes, like the downside of this is that I mean they are working quite bad conditions, and I think thanks to our project, we had a better budget that they were used to, and so people were able to work a little bit more normally, I would say. I mean, compared to a Japanese standard animated show, we had like twice the time to produce it. Usually they do like 26 episode series in like maybe 1 year, 1 year and a half, and we had like more than 2 years to produce the show. So but yes, as you showed previously, people are working in very small desks, and they are spending almost all their time at the office, which is
really
open like all the time.
They're really passionate. There's a passion that I've seen nowhere else. I mean, we have some good animators in France, and there's very super talented people as well. But in terms of the sheer passion and amount of work these guys are putting, and we became like them, because for the whole time of production, we worked 12, 13, 14 hours a day, 6 days a week, and we didn't take any holidays during the whole time of production. So we got into that. We shared that same passion, and making the show was anyway, finally the show that we had wanted so much to make was so much exciting that we were just putting everything we had into the production.
The thing is that they do not waste time. They don't do like drawings if they are not sure that they need this drawing. I mean, everything is very like I don't know how to say, but that's what I learned in Japan, is that you need this, you do this, you don't do more than you need, and no more, no less, just. And that's what I like. And you learn how to become quick and think quick, draw fast, and Stan and I, we were efficient. Efficiency is the key, and we learned that like during all those 2 years and a half.
There's efficiency, but also there's what's amazing in Japan is there's so many shows being produced, and shows that are more, a bit more mature, a bit more demanding in terms of, much more demanding than the typical youth programming in Europe. So in terms of the types of backgrounds, the types of characters, we have situations we have to storyboard or draw. It's so much more dramatic, interesting, that they're used to. That's what they work on every day. So they have a know-how that's very unique, and that was great to integrate to our show. I'm just going to show you very quickly some of the production drawings we did just before we went to Japan, to show everyone that we had the characters, we knew very clearly where we were going, and then the little adjustment that we made working with the Japanese staff. So that's a few that's the drawings we did before going to Japan.
So before going to Japan, I already designed all the main characters. I had a very precise idea of how they need to look in the show, but it wasn't like production material. It was like concept designs, and then they were refined.
We had some turnarounds too.
I did some, but they were completely redone by Japanese animators.
So after I've shown that and we've seen Mori, now I'm gonna turn off that, and I'm gonna show you some turnarounds and work we did in Japan with the Japanese staff working together on the show. Just a moment. And here we go. I share the screen. Hang on one little second. It's my first time. Sorry.
The Japanese staff, they were very, very respectful to our characters and artworks. So they didn't try to change. They just tried to make it easier to use in production and improve even more the designs.
So that, for example, here we have Mori, and you saw Mori earlier, Thomas drawing from 2003. And there's a little something more in the details.
Yeah.
But there's a little, because they were a lot more experienced than we were, and that's what we wanted to share with them, and we wanted to collaborate with them So we had a very talented animator who worked on the character design with you, Thomas, and who added little details, little touches that made the work even better.
I mean, it's not like he added details to the design, but it's the way it's drawn. It's
Yes,
more subtle, more like my drawings were a little bit too flat, and his drawing, like even the characters are very stylized. They are like more, I mean, not round, but they are more in volume, you know. And I learned so much by just like drawing or looking at those, how he redrew my characters, and it also changed my way of drawing them. And I mean, I made so much progress during those 2 years by just looking at how the Japanese animators were drawing the character I imagined. It was crazy.
So we managed. There was sometimes a little bumpy road in getting everybody working together, the French and the Japanese, because the Japanese, it was for them completely. For us, it was a new experience. It was our first big production, and also it was our first experience working with Japanese. And for them, it was maybe even more of an adventure because there was no co-production with. It's very, very rare, and we were not asking them to subcontract, but to work with us. And of course, we were helming the project. We were the directors, and I was a producer. But at the same time, we wanted the teams to interconnect and to really work together. And it was a bit. There was the barrier language. We didn't speak the same language. The way people work are different. The work habits, the way people behave. The Japanese are. It was our first. Now we've understood a lot more how Japanese people express themselves, what they mean, what they don't want to say, what they want to say, what it really means. But it was sometimes a bit difficult. So we won't go too much in the details maybe, but it was a bit bumpy at one point. But then gradually, the French team and the Japanese team started to work together to learn from one another, to realize that we all had, we were talented in our own rights, and we wanted to do the show as best as possible, and started working together. And I think after a while, there was no longer a Japanese team or a French team or a Japanese team, but there was an Oban team, and that's what we had come to look for. Japan.
I think I don't remember very well, but maybe it took a couple of months, 2 or 3 months, maybe to like get used to each other. And then at first, I mean, I remember very well, they didn't even think that we were able to work. I mean, for them, it was like, they're just like French. They don't do animation. Like, it's not that their thing. So, and then they were very surprised when they started to seeing us like drawing and writing stuff and going to meetings, like very, very long meetings. Sometimes like it was like, do you remember some meetings like maybe it started like at 10 p.m. and like during like maybe 4 hours, I don't remember exactly, but sometimes
maybe more often 6 hours, I'd say, because with the translation, these meetings were very long.
Yeah. So, and the guy in charge of translation, so you were talking about barrier of language, of course, but we had this guy. I think he was just like graduating from like a language school, or he was very, very like involved into the process, but he wasn't very, very good at that time.
Yes.
And I was like, you are very like fast talker. When you talk, like you're very, very passionate and talk very fast. And most of the time you're so much focused on what you are saying and all the creation of the so you don't realize that actually he wasn't like really able to follow you. And me, I was more into this kind of observation position. I was like, and I tried to each time to slow you down and to make sure that everybody was understanding what you said. It was, and he was already also very, very stressed. You remember, like already. So
he must hate me. He must hate me because when he wasn't translating right, it was like, but I told you, I was like, bad. And the poor guy was like shaking, but I was not very nice with him all the time. I'm sorry but at the time, so my responsibility also was to get the things across and to get moving. So you don't always. Sometimes you're nice, and sometimes you have to get things done. So that's.
But this guy, so he stayed like 2 years with us.
Yeah.
He could have like quit after 2 months, but he stayed all the time, and he was he's like, what he did was so valuable.
Mhm.
And at the same time, I started to. I mean, I was already. I learned Japanese before going to Japan, but the Japanese I learned at school in France was like very basic, not basic, but like very like. I mean, it's not the Japanese that you hear at the studio. So when I started working at the studio, I learned so many like animated, like production related vocabulary, and I learned how to talk in this like business, not business, but because it's not like business Japanese, like animation Japanese. You have a lot of words to understand. It was so learning how to work, improving my drawing abilities, managing all what I was able to manage, and learn a new language and like some like technical vocabulary. It was like very, very overwhelming, but so exciting. It was like crazy experience.
I'm looking at some questions on the board, and there is mentions of spirit and muir, and I wanted to do maybe just a very quick break and open some drawings from those two characters, which I must have here. And you can carry on talking about your Japanese experience in the process.
Yeah.
Meanwhile.
And then we are talking about how was the production and how it was in Japan, but most of the people maybe they came just to hear about the story and characters. So on my side, I mean, I'm really passionate about the animation industry and the animators and how the animation is made. And of course, I'm like creating characters and working on stories is great, but the all the creative process also is, I think, to my opinion, even more like deep and interesting. So that's what I use most of the time. I really enjoy talking about the process more than the story or the character itself. But if you have questions, don't hesitate, and we will happy to answer.
Now that's a very early drawing of Muir for the person who just talked about Muir. That's a little notebook from Stan. Stan did a lot of
it's Stan. Yes.
And you see that I wanted for Muir a character that was really, you couldn't understand. It was just weird and scary and weird. And of course, we're going to discover that there's a softer side to Muir, which will be the interesting reveal in the episode that's focusing on him. So we tried various concepts, and that's one of the concepts where it's starting to take shape a little bit. And I'll move on to another drawing, and that's a Thomas drawing. That's already very close to the original drawing. There was a crab, there was an octopus, sort of mixed together, and that's almost the final French version before we moved to Japan, which is very close to the final Muir. And I'll just run quickly through some of those. Those are drawings that we did between 2001 and 2003 when we were looking at all the secondary characters to finalize them. We had already finalized some of them for the 2001 trailer. We had the Krogs already. We had Molly. We had Lord Furter. But a lot of characters needed to be finalized a bit more. That's the first Muir. That's a drawing from me. I recognize this very artistic. That's not O. That's O.
No, it's O. Okay.
Yeah, that's a drawing I made of O, and I wanted a weird character with a big eye, and that could be placed in different position and still work. And from this concept idea, that's maybe a drawing from you. That's from you probably.
I think that's mine. Yes.
Yes. And here we go. We arrive to O a little later, and that's Paradise.
That's a dessin from. That's a drawing from Loïc.
Loïc. So Loïc and some characters, especially the ones that are a bit more crazy, he had a strong input. Loïc is a very more like underground kind of designer, and he brought some very interesting ideas that Thomas was able to incorporate in the final drawings, and that's a rendering of Paradise, an early rendering by Thomas. and another one, and we're getting closer and closer to the paradise that we have in the show. And you wanted Spirit. That's an early drawing for Spirit by Thomas. You can tell me a little bit about this drawing, Thomas? Do you remember?
No, I don't.
You don't remember?
Actually, I don't really remember, but like, yeah.
The core idea is he was his own ship. He created his own wings. That was
that was the main idea. Like we wanted a very impressive character. He comes, he doesn't have any ship, and everybody's saying like, but where is his ship? And then he transforms into his own ship. That's and
that's an early pre-Japan drawing, but that's already close to the concept. And that's a funny character. That's again a drawing from Loic for Mr. Lord. Mr. What's his name? I'm missing. Super Racer. And you see, we tried different color rendering for this guy.
That's nice too. I think I lost all my old files, so it's nice to see them. I think I didn't take any files when I came to Japan, so the oldest files that I have are from after 2003.
I will some of those drawings, some of those funny, interesting, funny in the case of Super Racer, but pre-production drawing will be featured on the mini art book that is on the collector edition of the Blu-ray. For those who wants to know, so we have lots of goodies and lots of nice drawings that we'll put on that art book. So I'm going to show you maybe a few. What time is it? So I'll show a few more drawings maybe quickly from that period, the production period. Just to some backgrounds and some of the image board that you did for every episode, which were very useful in expressing to the storyboard.
I did a lot of that. Was actually when we started working with Japanese, we really wanted to give them like a very precise vision of the way we were picturing the series in our heads. So I remember you asked me to draw as much drawing as possible to as a reference for the Japanese storyboarders, directors, and animators.
Yeah. So most of those drawings became shots. Actually, they use shots.
And that's also something crazy because I was just like drawing some reference, and I realized that they starting use my drawings as it in the storyboards.
So it's a bit mixed up because the numbers are not very good. But we'll go back to the story to the image boards. Here's a few drawings from Stan that are part of the work that was done in Japan.
Yeah, those drawings are made by Sugimoto-san, who was the mechanical designer of the show. He was like.
Just like you worked with an experienced character designer to finalize the model sheets, Stan had a very experienced mecha designer who worked on I remember on shows like Dragon Ball and lots of other shows like that. And he was a great mecha designer, and that also helped to go into the details and make it even more clear for the animators how the spaces and the controls were working.
We were doing like concept design with Stan, like original designs and ideas, and they were taking our design and made some production drawings very consistent and very easy to understand for the Japanese animators.
That's drawings of Rick, and you see all the details of how his tattoos are
the tattoo designed. I remember it took like weeks because each time we asked about the tattoo. So is the tattoo already made, the design? And he really wanted to make something very easy to draw for animators. So it was very difficult to him. It took him a lot of time to.
And here's another image board,
to draw the tattoo.
An image board from Thomas from Molly is not happy and set is coming on. Here's
great expression from the Japanese character designer. I was so happy when I saw model sheets.
Yeah, because we don't have a lot of lines on the faces, and we don't have noses, obviously. So with very little, he managed to really bring up the expression from the character.
Most of the time, the character expression are my weakest point. I like drawing like shapes and colors, but facial expression are my weakest point. And when I learned so much when I saw those drawings.
A few more image boards.
So, yeah, I did a lot of those small sketches, yes.
And again, some poses from Aika. Some of your image boards. That's
I learned so much.
Drawing. Very scary.
Yeah.
And some backgrounds, and that's something also. But Stanislas was in charge of backgrounds, but you were in charge of art direction, and there was
Stanislas was in charge of basically line drawings. So he drew all the shapes and lines, and I painted all the backgrounds. So I was in charge of the colors and how to the lightning, colors, and the style.
And what was an idea that was
everything is made in sorry.
An idea that was very important is that they were we don't see lines in the backgrounds, it's just applied colors, which was very important because that's the way we rendered the 3D sequences. And from the start we had this, it was very important that it would be matchless when we move from 2D to 3D, that we don't see that there's a difference, and that's what gave the whole style of the backgrounds, right?
And absolutely, and that's also why if you look at the 3D race scenes, even like 15 years later, it's still good. It aged quite well.
It has.
And regarding the backgrounds, I would like to add a few words on the backgrounds. We had this drawing. So this drawing is made by I painted this one, but during the show, of course, I couldn't. There are like thousands of background for each of the cuts. We needed to paint it a lot of backgrounds for the show, and we worked with a Japanese studio called Muko, who was very famous but very old school. And so at that time, beginning of it was 2003, they never all the show they produced, all the background they painted so far was hand painted. They never used like a computer to paint the background. But I requested that actually because I wanted the backgrounds to be very like painted, like very flat colors, very simple, to match very well also with the 3D scenes, but because the background in the 3D scenes were made by the French studio based on the same references. And for me, it was very important to have the same kind of background in 2D scenes and 3D scenes. And I asked them very strongly to please use a computer and use Photoshop to paint these backgrounds. Otherwise, it will not be the same at all. And it was very, very hard for them. And it took a lot of time before they started like doing good work on the background. At first, they were so good at like hand painting, and when I saw the first background, it was like just not good at all. So I had to. It was also a lot of work to help them with the process and to find together a good way to paint the background. It was a lot of work. But
we have a question: what were the inspirations for the backgrounds and especially the ruins? So conceptually, when you can answer it graphically, Thomas, the idea was that we wanted something for the that all civilization have something in common, because basically everything comes from Oban, and all those planets that were linked with Oban would have, especially the 3 planets where we had the pre-selections, had buildings that recalled a bit of every. It had to feel like it. We could feel it's Maya, it's Egyptian, it's a bit of everything. This link of a very, very old past. And also it had to be simple, so we could make it in 3D and integrate it into the backgrounds and the race sequences. Thomas, you have something more to say?
Yeah, I have something to say. Because like we tried to design like a very old civilization coming from Oban, and then you can see the same kind of ruins in Arwas, and the shapes are quite simple, a lot of like egg shapes, and so basically it was designed by Stan. So actually we should ask them. But I remember very well something is that in the very first version of Oban Racers, it was not like that. It was not like old ruins. It was more like technology. You had more. I don't know if the mothership, for example, it was like in metal. It was like a
That's
alien
very
ship.
old. That's a very, very
Very,
old.
very old.
Yeah, it's
But,
true. It's true.
and,
In 1998,
yeah,
it was like it. Yeah.
and I was not very comfortable with that because I mean, mecha design is very hard. And after Oban, I started like more studying and doing mecha design. But at that time, I wasn't very comfortable to draw like some very cool like big motherships, and so I was more interested into drawings like natural landscapes and old ruins. So it was more like it was also on my personal taste of pictures, and so that's also why we choose to draw so many like beautiful natural landscape in Arwas, the sea, the cliffs, the rice pads, and even in Oban also a lot of nature, so trees and stuff and rocks. And you can there is almost no like very high tech backgrounds in the show. You have spaceships, but and after Oban, I've been working on I've worked on a lot of science fiction shows, and I learned how to to draw them. But at that time, it was like so much easier and so much like I took a lot of pleasure to draw all those natural landscapes.
And what's cool about all this natural landscape is also that, of course, Oban, we want, it's the mother of all planets, so it has to be very varied and very wide, and it's really an ode to nature. And even in Alawas, what's really cool is we have this big contrast between something very ancient, very old. Every 10,000 years, the race take place, so everything is a bit very old, and we have these sometimes very high-tech ships contrasting with that old mystical environment. That's really cool.
Yeah, and regarding the art style, also I think very influenced by the Zelda game, the Wind Waker game, which was also a lot of beautiful natural landscapes and very simple style, very flat colors, and like in cell shading, and that's a big influence on me.
That's something the Japanese we are very, I think, interested about, is the color panel. Its palette is very pastel. It's not we're not pushing the colors very high, and there's a lot of Japanese shows where you have very strong reds and very strong bam bam bam, and Oban is all in subtle. And the writing, I think, is subtle. The art style is subtle. There's something a bit more. There's a lot of nuance that you don't find that often in a lot of shows, and I think that also makes Oban special.
But yeah, it's maybe a little bit more technical stuff. But in Japan, usually you don't have art directors on the shows. You have the director, and then you have a background director and a character designer. But on Oban, the good thing is I could like take care of the characters, backgrounds, like to have like somebody to just have an overview of all the artworks. It's like it doesn't happen a lot in Japan actually. So I think
nowhere. That's one of the things you talk about the length of a production, which was longer than usual, and that's something I was very keen about, and I pushed our investors in accepting that the show is going to take longer to produce, because usually a typical series, every week there's a new episode starting, so the character designers start to do their character designs, and then the next week they change and they move to something else. And all the teams, one after the other, follow the lead, and there's they change every week. In Oban, we had an episode starting every 2 weeks, which means character designs had 2 weeks to work on character designs. But I mean, that's you basically. But that instead of having the strong point of that, instead of having 2 or 3 character designers, we had one. I mean, and instead of having several writers, for example, for script as well, I would write all the episodes, which was I had to, because I had other things to do as well. You had to work fast and hard, but because of that, you had a very small us 3 in Japan, Stanislas, you and me. We really had in our hands the control of all aspects of the production, and also because I was producer as well, which allowed me to stop sometimes our partners and say, no, we can't do that. We want to. It's very important that we do this. Or if I decided we would spend that much money on the music, for example, which had a much higher budget than a typical show, we could decide that we could control that. And having so little people having so much control is not something that happens very often, and that's why we were able to put a lot of ourselves in the series and make it feel a little more special than most.
Yes, I'm looking a little bit at the questions,
yep.
and we still have a little bit more than 15 minutes.
Yep, sure.
Maybe we can talk a little bit about the future of Oban, because
yes.
I saw a question about that. Will there be new projects set in the Oban Star-Racers universe?
So that's a good question. We had always sort of wanted to do sequels or other projects around the Oban world we had created. It was difficult right after the series because most of the partners we'd work with had been bought by other companies, or the guy in charge had been fired, or in this is a bit a jungle, this world of TV channels and production. So when you have a new guy coming in, he wants to do his own things and things. The editorial line changes. So and also I think people who produced Oban were very happy with the results, and the series did well on TV, but they were a bit afraid to go again into something special or a bit emotional, sequential, which at the time was very rare, and they were a bit, for them it's more work. They need to follow. They're a bit. It stresses them a bit that we are being a bit too creative for our own good. So we were a little bit in advance. I mean, if we had nowadays things are much more open. And we have streamers who can give you a lot more freedom in terms of what is produced. So we're still maybe too much ahead of our time, and it's a bit difficult. 10 years ago, for the 10 years of Oban, no, 5 years ago, for the 10 years of Oban Star-Racers, we met again and we started working on exploring new options for new series of Oban, a spin-off set in the world of Prince Aika and a sequel. But we didn't have Savin World has very limited funding, and we had also other projects we're already working on, so we didn't take that as far as we wanted to. But one of the idea of this Kickstarter we're doing now that's a secondary objective, I'd say. The first one is to have, for the first time, a great Blu-ray in HD with the original HD masters, to see the series how it was meant to be from the very beginning. 24 frames per second with a 4:3 framing. But secondary objective also is to get people interested in Oban again, the fans obviously, but also potential investors. And we are very happy with things that are going so far. The higher we go on the Kickstarter, the better chances we have to attract big investors or channels to finance new projects, and we're excited that we can do that, and we're gonna with the proceeds of the Kickstarter we can finance more development for the series, and hopefully bring new seasons of the series to fruition. I mean to happen. what can we say? I'll show you maybe. So we've kept some of those drawings very secret until now. I showed them. We did a 15th anniversary event in Paris in December last year, and it was in a movie theater. It was packed with fans, and for the first time, I pitched those ideas of new projects, and I was able to exchange and discuss. It was very, very exciting and touching to hear the feedbacks from the fans. But I told
Actually,
them,
Savin, so I wasn't here because I'm in Japan
I
and I
know,
couldn't go.
of course,
So I don't know. I wasn't here to see the reaction of fans. So did they like one of the idea better than other, or what was the?
Yes. They like the sequel, but one of the ideas. Well, I'm going to say it because I have to say it anyway. Very often people are torn between. They are really excited about having a sequel to Oban, and also they're afraid of. Yeah, but you're going to break. The ending of Oban works very well as it is. We don't need a sequel, and I want to get everybody straight here, but I don't want to do new Oban to make a quick back or something. If I want to go back to the world of Oban, it's a word I like. I love those characters. I love the universe we created, and I love working with Thomas and Stan. And that's what I would like to do again, to find a bit of his magic again. So the idea is never to break anything. And one of the ideas I talked about is that the sequel and the beautiful drawings I will show in a minute that Thomas did for the sequel. It could be Molly, but it could be not Molly also. It could be a descendant of Molly. It could take place several generations later, and we revisit the world of Oban Star-Racers several generations later. And for audiences who've never seen Oban, it's just a great new, because there's a lot of great ideas we've come up with, a great science fiction adventure. And for those who've loved Oban and know the characters and the world, there will be a lot of echoes with the first season, because there will be a girl who looks like Molly, but she's not Molly, she's a descendant. There will be a guy who looks like Aika, but is not Aika. And the situation have changed between humans and Eurasian at that time. There is a lot of resentment between the two of them. And Krogs are in a difficult situation and they need exterior help. And that will redistribute the balance of powers, the relationships. And we're going to live a new adventure within the world of Oban. But it's not exactly a sequel; it's a continuation. And I pitched the two possibilities: the straight sequel, and this idea of we're farther down the road. Yeah. And most of the fans present at that reunion, and we have an occasion to discuss that more with more fans to see if everybody's happy with that. But they like that idea that we preserve what we've done, and now we extend. But it's a continuation, not a straight sequel.
Yeah,
and I think it opens a lot of doors, because also Thomas, we talked about that before. One of the things we're interested in is to go further in terms of writing, in terms of design, than what we did before, because I think we did a pretty good job. And if fans are here, that's the proof of that. But we had to fight all the way, because we were our producers were for youth programming. So you're not allowed to have people dying. You're not able to have tattoos, piercing, that's forbidden. The way you portray violence is very complex, and somehow we managed to push those boundaries. And Molly has tattoos, she has piercing, her mother's died. That's a very important aspect of the show. But we had to fight every little step to impose those ideas. If we are doing a sequel that's aimed at a slightly older audience, that doesn't mean excluding kids, because we're not going to change Oban into a show where people get their throats cut open or anything like that. But if we are allowed to be a bit more aimed a bit more at a slightly older audience, then that opens a lot of doors in the way we can push Oban in terms of writing and design even further. And I think for fans who've seen the series as kids and have grown now, they're 25, 30-year-old. They would feel much closer to that. That's they could relate, I think, to that new that sequel, slightly addressed to a slightly older audience.
Yeah, I mean, there are so many possible options. Yeah. I also liked. I don't know if you want to show some pictures.
I'm going to show your main artwork from
I was also quite interested in the spin-off in the on the planet of Aika.
Yes, so that's another option that's also absolutely on the table right now, and I will put. So that's a beautiful concept art from Thomas, and we see old friends, or at least we think they're old friends,
Yeah.
and very excited for me to the option of revisiting the race of spirits of Rush, the Krogs. I mean, it's really something. I'm not going to go in details about the concept there is behind this project, because there is really a high concept, sci-fi high concept that I think expands the concept of the creators in a very interesting way. But that's just for now what we'll be sharing. And there will be a small featurette in the Blu-ray that will give a little more clues about what I talked about during the Oban Star-Racers event in December, and the pitch I made. And we can show a drawing also of the spin-off. Should we do that or not, or we keep it secret? Thomas, tell me.
Yeah, let's do it.
Show it. This is crazy. Okay. Just a second, because it's a beautiful artwork from Thomas. That's very exciting.
I drew that. I drew it. It's been a few years, so I don't exactly remember what I don't know what you are going to show, but I remember it was like the 10 years anniversary of the show. Yeah, 10 years anniversary. Wow, nice. And so, yeah, what we imagine is like Aika is riding like a giant beetle, right? And so we imagine that on his planet, you could have other like prince characters in different regions of the planet, each of them riding a different types of like different type of insect. And here you can see Aika fighting against like an opponent riding a giant centipede.
Yeah. So this project is a spin-off which would take place before the events of Oban Star-Racers, the first series. So we see how Aika becomes the great fighter that we know, and we'll understand a bit more why he's attracted to money but doesn't go very far. Also, that there's maybe something linked to his past that sort of stops him from getting even closer to her. But that's more secrets to be revealed. So what time is it? We're
people in the comment are excited about bug fights.
Bug fight, good. Will there be other sexualities and gender shown in your future project, other than just straight men and women? Well, actually, I think we have a lot of. We have a lot. It's something we've already addressed a little bit in Oban. We have very different types of characters. Molly is a girl, but she acts like a boy. We have Ning and Scan, which are opening certain were very unusual and typical characters for youth programming. But that's something we'll certainly want to look into further. And I know a lot of Oban fans are interested in that. So that's I can't say now, but it's possible we have some characters that explore a bit that side a bit further. What about a game? Well, we worked hard to try to get a game produced, because of course there is a very gaming element in the races Oban. We couldn't get one financed before the series, because the series, it wasn't sure until the very end that the series was going to get produced. And when the series was produced, it was a bit late to make a game, because it takes time to make a game, and people want to release the game simultaneously with the series. We did a project that I worked very hard on to do a DS game, and we had a very good prototype. And the small studio I trusted with that betrayed me in a very nasty way when I had found a distributor, I had found a budget, we were ready to produce, and just when we were going to sign, they refused to go forward and did another project instead. So I was very, very disappointed by that. But now we have a possibility of a game that's very serious. There's a small team called Sky High Studios. It's a small team. They're beginning. They're very passionate. There's a lot of Oban fans that have joined that team, and we're talking to right now create a demo for a PC game, which could then later on go on other platforms. It's early in the process, but they're very talented and very motivated, and I'm following that very closely. So hopefully in the near future we could have an Oban Star-Racer game.
We have some people from the team in the watching, like here in the comments.
So hello to Sky Isles, and they did a great job, and to in a way to convince me and a way to convince themselves of what they could do. They did a wonderful Oban Star-Racer project on Dreams. Dreams is a software that works on PlayStation 4 and 5, where you can create your own games, but it's pretty limited in terms of 3D. And in spite of those limitations, they recreated whole racetracks, beautiful racetracks taking place in the world of Oban, with several of the racing ships, and it's really outstanding visually, and that's very promising in terms of what they can achieve on a PC game using an Unreal engine. How do you spell the name of Spirit's Race? Well, it's the Hurtlum. I think it's a Hurtlum, but I don't want to get it wrong. It's been a long time since I went back into my old notes, but I think it's, if my memory is right, it's Hurtlum, which is HORTLM, something like that. But I can double check, and I can make a post of that later on.
Maybe we can conclude by saying something about the Kickstarter campaign.
Yes, because it's very late for Thomas. What time is it in Japan now?
It's 1 a.m.
It's already 1 a.m. So we're not gonna push Thomas. He has work to do tomorrow. We don't want to kill him. We thank you everyone who's been following us. And if you have more, we haven't answered a lot of questions. It's a fields. Oh, Heartland is another race. I'm sorry. I think that's the race. That's the ship that gets hit by Flynn and I don't know. So I mixed up. I'm sorry. Oh, terrible. The creator who doesn't remember the races. I'm sorry. So if you have other specific questions that we didn't answer, you can send them to me, and later on I'll try to answer them. And
so the Kickstarter.
Yeah,
So
the Kickstarter
is it going good?
It's doing well. I was hoping it was going to do well, but I was a bit afraid. It's always a bit risky when you start a Kickstarter. You never know exactly how it's going to end up. So thank you everyone for your tremendous support. We still have a few surprises in store. We hope we reach the 300,000 euros mark, the ninth, which would open the ninth stretch goal. We have another stretch goal, secret stretch goal in store if we reach that. And of course, the higher we go, the better for the most likely we can invest in some development for the future. And also that's one of the key aspects. Also is pure numbers. Those big guys who finance shows, very interested in licenses that they feel are hot or are successful. So the higher we go, the clearer message we send to investors or TV channels that there's a community out there of fans who really love the series and are really eager to see more things, more stories, more episodes in the world of Oban Star-Racers. So please continue to support us. You've been wonderful so far. And in the final days, let's try to reach a few more stretch goals. Thank you to all. I think we're going to end here.
Thank you very much.
It's already time. Thomas, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Always a pleasure. And maybe it was a bit hard for you in English, but you did very well. Your English.
Always. I'm not very
It was
comfortable
in
with that.
Japanese. It was in Japanese. It would have been so much easier for me, but I couldn't have answered. Couldn't have spoken with you because my Japanese is really not as good. Thank you, everyone, and thank you, Thomas.
Thank you for watching.
Bye bye.
Goodbye.